that is specific to the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, which is one of our partners for this program. My name is Nikki Taylor Vargo. I am the Assistant Dean of the non-JD programs here at the law school, which includes our minor in law program. And I have some other individuals here with me today, so I would like them to go ahead and introduce themselves. Mary Grenfell, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for kicking it off, Dean Taylor Vargo. My name is Mary Grenfell. I'm an advisor in the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, or CFPCA, as we abbreviate it. And I advise the minor in law program among some other majors and minors. And I'm just very excited to welcome everybody and help answer any questions and just get everyone set as best I can. So welcome.
Perfect, thank you. Also here today is Professor Lance Gable.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lance Gable. I am a professor at the law school, and I'm also the faculty director of the minor in law program. And so, I've been involved with helping along with Dean Taylor Vargo and a number of other people to develop the program. And I'm going to talk a little later about some of the courses and some of the opportunities that come out of the program. So looking forward to talking with all of you today.
All right. And then Miss Ashley Strouser.
Hi, everyone. We're very excited to have you here today with us. So thank you for joining. As Dean Taylor Vargo mentioned, I am Ashley Strasser. I'm the Assistant Director of the non-JD programs here at the law school. I'm here to help with any questions that you have. I also have previously done the JD admissions here at the law school, and I'm actually an alum of the law school as well. So any way that I can help you, I'm here to do so. And we're looking forward to sharing some exciting information with you today.
Thank you, Ashley. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. Now that we've introduced ourselves to you, we would like to get to know a little bit more about our attendees and talk about your desire to study law. And then we will go over the advantages and benefits of a minor in law for someone who has a major in the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts. And we'll talk about what the requirements are for the minor in law, what your next steps are. And then the best part is that we have invited some students who are part of the minor in law program, as well as someone who is an alum of the journalism program who's going to talk about how the minor in law may have helped them had it been in place when they were here at the university. So without further ado, for those of you who are our guests learning more about the program, would you mind just unmuting yourselves and introducing? If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, if you are, maybe a freshman, sophomore, junior, what is your major, what brings you here today, and why are you interested in the minor in law program? Do I have any volunteers? Daniel, yes, please, thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to see you all. I'll start off. My name is Daniel Sykes. My current grade status is I'm a senior, major in communication studies. 3 minors, minor in law is one. The other 2 are African American studies and health communication. What brings me here today? Well, I'm a panelist, of course, on the minor in law program. And really, I've always been interested in law. One of the reasons why I decided to do the minor in law program was that I wanted to get more knowledge about it and how it pertains to my study of communication. And it really just shows how much law is encompassed in all of our lives at every single element. So I'm very excited about it. I was very excited when the program came out, and to have that as a minor, as one day I would like to attend law school and become an attorney.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Daniel. Lashara or Kalia?
Hi. I saw on the, Lashara Montgomery. I'm a junior and my major is communication study. And what brought me here today, my advisor, Mary, asked me to be a panelist, and I graciously accepted. I love this program. I was one of the first interested students when you all launched the informational session a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago or so. And what brought me here today, you know, my interest was I saw it on like on the Wayne State's webpage that this program was going to launch. And I just clicked on it and saw the areas of interest and how it covered most majors, and how in my area of work, because I'm also an employee at Wayne State, how it can be used in obtaining a promotion in my department where I currently work.
Absolutely. Well, great. Thank you for being here. We appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Kalia, welcome.
So Kalia actually submitted some feedback via the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yep, she said that she would unmute but is in class. She's a freshman and is one of my students in exploratory communications. So we actually have a meeting later today. So today is perfect in terms of timing. We'll take a look at majors and minors, kind of moving forward from there.
Excellent. Well, Kalia, thank you for joining us today, and we will try to make this quick for you so that you don't miss too much class. With that being said, typically I like to ask our attendees, you know, what kind of prompted their desire to study law. And you'll see on the screen here that there are many reasons as to why someone might want to learn more about law. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but what I think is important are the last two, because those are the last three. Those are the ones that are normally what drives them to want to study more about the law. And number one is just to have a better understanding, right? It affects every aspect of our lives. You know, it could either be on a personal level or even a professional level. It's also an opportunity for you to advocate and help others as well as yourself. And then also, this is the opportunity for you to change the law, right? The best way to change a law is to understand why we have it to begin with, and then understand what the process is to be able to change it. So with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Professor Gable, who's going to talk to you about many of the advantages of a minor in law here at Wayne State University.
Thanks, Dean Taylor Vargo. And I want to say hi to both Lashara and Daniel, who I had in class last year. They were both in my law and harm class. And so it's really nice to see both of you here today. And basically, what I wanted to start with is just to talk a little bit about why this program is unique and why we think it's a really valuable educational experience for students who take these courses and who enroll in this program. So one of the reasons that we think this is a really great opportunity is, as Dean Taylor Vargo was mentioning a minute ago, there are so many interconnections between law and other areas of our lives, and that also applies to other areas that that you might be studying in, and especially if you're focusing on, you know, all the different areas that come under the umbrella of the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts. You know, there's so many interconnections between different disciplines in fine arts and performing arts and communication arts and the law. And I know we're going to talk about some specific applications in some of the upcoming slides, but the underlying opportunity here is that because law is so connected to so many different things, that studying law, learning law, and getting more information about how the legal system works and applies can really kind of expand the horizons of the education that you're getting in your other programs. And so it's a good additional facet of understanding how different things you're already studying apply in the real world, and how laws might influence how you might end up operating within those different realms and in those different disciplines as you go forward in your lives. And so that's one really, I think, key opportunity out of this program. A second, and some of you who've already taken the courses might have already experienced some of this, but we try to design our courses in a way to not only give you exposure to different topics and different legal subjects, but also to give you an opportunity to develop some skills that you might not get in some of your other courses. And so the idea that we apply to how we approach the classes, and which is similar to what you would see if you were actually a JD student in law school, is a real focus on critical thinking skills, logical thinking skills, oral and written communication as well, and making sure that you can do really good analysis of sometimes complicated documents. And at least in my classes, I know I always have students read real cases and real legal materials so they can get a sense of what those materials look like. And to have a good opportunity to learn how to analyze them. And so for those of you that might end up going to law school, this is great training and kind of a window into what it's like to be a law student in a JD program. For those of you that don't end up going that route, this is still a good set of skills to have to carry forward in whatever you do with your lives and different careers that you're going to have in the future. And the third point here is that because of the uniqueness of this educational experience, we think it's a really good way for students to differentiate themselves when they're going out on the job market or when they're applying for a graduate program, that they can have this on their transcript, on their resume, and can really show that they've had not only a very high quality educational experience, but one that's also very unique compared to most of their peers. And so one of the things that I think really sets us apart is that this program and the way that it's structured, taking real law classes from real law faculty at our law school while you're still an undergraduate student, is really a very rare experience. Very few universities around the country have this kind of program, and we are the only program in the Midwest to offer this kind of opportunity to take law courses as an undergraduate from law faculty at our law school. And so that's I think a real opportunity as well. So I'm going to pass it on back to Dean Taylor Vargo.
Thank you, Professor Gable. So Professor Gable will be back shortly to actually go over those actual law classes that you'll take here at the law school, because he is one of the faculty that teach those classes. So with that being said, I'm now going to turn it over to Miss Mary Grenfell, who is going to talk about the benefits of a minor in law for those of you who are part of the CFPCA. Mary?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So as Professor Gable mentioned, I mean, it's, the benefits are, I think they're immeasurable in the sense that we are, the only program in the Midwest that offers the opportunity for undergrad students to take classes actually in the law school, which is something to brag about in itself. But specifically, when we work with communication students, oftentimes myself as an advisor and our chairs and our deans, we get questions from students about things like, well, how do I prepare for the business of being an artist or a journalist or a musician or whatever your field is. So some of the benefits listed here that we're taking a look at include, some legal issues that you may run into: creation and ownership rights, intellectual property, disputes about censorship or authenticity, perhaps fraud or theft of the work, taxation, and we all have to pay our taxes, right? Especially in business. So when it comes down to specifically CFPCA students, I find that a lot of students are really enjoying these LEX courses, as the term, the prefix for the law classes that students would take in the minor. I'm finding that a lot of students are really enjoying just the exposure to these discussions. A lot of our coursework in CFPCA, rightfully so, is very focused on content in terms of artistry and drawing and music and communication skills and things like that, which are all wonderful skills to have. But in the background, it's really nice to have that understanding, even if you're not a lawyer yet. Or I always tell my students, you should take a stats class. Even if you're not going to be a statistician, you should still understand the basic concepts. Kind of the same thing applies here, where we want students to have that exposure in protecting their authorship and protecting their intellectual property and their tangible property, their pieces of art, their pieces of film, their pieces of video, those types of things. When living in such a digital world, we are often discussing inside the classroom and outside of it. We're discussing that type of ownership all the time when it comes down to who owns the social media handles, who owns the post that they just put up there. If they tag someone in a post, who owns it? Is the person that's tagged or the person that actually posted it? So I know that's a very specific example, but these discussions are real discussions that are happening in a court of law, in businesses and different organizations. So that's really nice to start those conversations for students now, especially if you want to go to law school. But even if you don't, you can at least have that skill set or that knowledge base in your back pocket. As we're seeing, to best handle any legal issues that you may run into, it's nice to have some exposure to different things like contracts, criminal law, constitutional law, intellectual property. Again, you won't be an expert after the minor finishes, but at least that'll kind of give you a little leg up. Again, if you choose to go to law school after you complete your bachelor's, or if you don't, at least you have that background information to at least speak to an attorney about it, which is very helpful. I like I said, I work with a lot of students that are very focused on the artistic side, the creative side of their programs, which is wonderful. We foster artists in our college, but we also want them to be savvy and successful business people too. So it's kind of that marriage or that combination of those skill sets. And as our slide indicates, just being comfortable with some legal terminology and some concepts can really just empower you. So from here, as we take a look at some job opportunities, again, they are endless. Please do not let this list limit you in terms of what you would be looking at professionally. This is just a small sample, but we do have folks that graduate and become public relations professionals, communication managers. Some folks go into politics. Other folks are in management in terms of running production companies, running theaters, record labels, representing musicians, being their managers or their agents, becoming curators for galleries, either artistic galleries or different, either galleries of works of art or photos, or both. And then some folks go on to a career in journalism or in law. So really the possibilities are endless. And with students kind of having this background, I haven't been in the admissions game in several years. I used to be in admissions before I was an advisor. But I think it's safe to say that if someone had these types of credentials on their application, I would think that would give them some extra points. So just something to throw out there as well.
Okay, I think now is the time to talk about some of the classes and the requirements for the program. I just want to say, kind of following up on what Mary was just saying, it really is amazing to me, the astonishing variety of different careers that students who come through CFPCA can pursue. And the goal of our program here is to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're going to have an even deeper understanding of how to operate in all those different fields and to hopefully have a great deal of success in all those different fields. So in our minor in law program, the way we have it structured is there are 3 courses that every student takes that are taught at the law school. And then there are a number of additional courses that you need to take in your own school that are electives that can be scheduled. And I'm going to talk first about the law classes, and then I'm going to pass it back to I don't know if Mary's going to talk about the CFPCA classes. So Basically, the 3 law courses are designed to give you a basic understanding of some fundamental legal concepts, to give you some experience with and exposure to legal materials, and to just give you a good foundation for understanding some legal topics. And so these courses don't have to be taken in any particular order, and they're offered every year, sometimes more than once a year, depending on the course. And I'm just going to spend just a couple of minutes really quickly explaining what the courses cover. The first one is Lex 5000, that's Law and Social Context. This is a course that focuses on how the law functions as a kind of foundational institution in our society, but also does it through the lens of thinking about property. And so asks questions about how property rights and their recognition or lack of recognition structure a lot of different aspects of our society. What does it mean to own something? And when you are the legal owner of that thing, what does that allow you to do? And it covers not only kind of issues related to tangible physical property, but also intellectual property, which might be particularly of interest to some students who are pursuing degrees in CFPCA. And it's a really good course just to give kind of a broad understanding of how the legal system works in a lot of different ways that affect our lives every day. The second course is Lex 5010, Law and Harm. This is the course that I have taught a few times, and so I probably know this one the best, and I'll give you the very, very short summary of the course, but it's basically a course that looks at the different ways that law and the legal system deal with harm that can occur in many different kinds of ways. So we might be talking about physical harm, might be talking about psychological or emotional harm, we might be talking about economic harm. And when people think about how law deals with harm or how the law can be used to address harm, most often people think about the criminal justice system and prosecuting people for violating criminal statutes. And we do talk about criminal law in the course. We also talk about the tort system, which is the civil system that allows people to file lawsuits against each other to get compensation for harms that have been caused against them. And so those two systems, both the criminal justice system, criminal law, and the tort system, civil law, we spend a bunch of the course focusing on how those systems work, some of the major legal theories and structure of those systems, some of the shortcomings of those systems. But we don't only talk about law and harm retrospectively. So both torts and criminal law focus on the harm after it's happened. And we spend a section of the course talking about how law can be used prospectively to prevent harm from happening or to mitigate harm to make it less bad. And so at least in the last couple of semesters when I taught this course, we spend that section of the course focusing on the COVID-19 response and the different ways that law was or was not used to try to intervene and deal with the potential harm that was emerging when we were facing a major pandemic. And so one other thing I'll say about the course is that I do give students the opportunity to read a lot of legal materials, cases, a lot of judicial opinions, other articles that focus on different aspects of the law. And so students come out of the course not only understanding those topics pretty well, but also having good exposure to some of those legal materials. And then the third course, Lex 5020, legal procedure. And this is a course that focuses in some pretty significant detail on how procedure functions within the legal system. There's an opportunity to kind of walk through a legal case from beginning to end, all the different stages, all the different kinds of procedures that are in place, but also all the different kinds of substantive challenges that come up in applying those procedures to real life circumstances. And the course also looks at how procedure is important in a broader sense. So obviously having due process is a cornerstone of our legal system, and understanding how process is built into so many different aspects of our lives through legal rules, but also just through social interactions is an important component of understanding the importance of legal procedure in our lives. And so those are the three law courses. Together, they provide a really strong foundation for beginning to understand the legal system and learning some of the skills that we were talking about earlier.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Gable. So when it comes down to the meat and potatoes of the actual minor. So there are 18 credits or 6 courses in the minor itself. So the 3 LEX or legal studies courses that Professor Gable described just a moment ago. And then from here, the CFPCA side has identified some common courses for students to take as well. You can see those below. What I always want to make sure students understand is that we want to meet at least once a semester in terms of advising, just because not every one of these courses is offered every semester. So that's something to keep in mind. Usually I am privy to when the courses are available, but in most cases I can kind of set up a year outlook, I suppose, for students. And then once the schedule becomes available, then we kind of finalize the plans. So another thing to note is that we are one of maybe only a few colleges within the university that allows for the double counting within the major and the minor. So what that means is if you are, for example, a communication studies major, you would have to take COM 2110, which is argumentation and debate. You would need that either way for your major. So we allow that to double count in the major and the minor. I believe the College of Business does not allow for double count. So each college is a little different when it comes down to those offerings. We allow up to 2 double counts between our major and our minor. So you would have to choose one of those classes below that we're looking at as a separate class, separate from your major. And then from there, I just go in and manually adjust your degree works to show that your minor is complete. So that's sort of a little thing on the side that I'll take care of getting you ready for graduation. So that's kind of my role, is I make sure all the technical kinks are worked out and that, we're kind of putting together the puzzle of your scheduling. I see LaShara is smiling because we do that a lot. We put together the puzzle. Same thing for Daniel. Daniel and I have worked together to kind of piece it time by time. So that's what I'm here for. That's my skill set. That's my knowledge base. So that's what I offer. And then in terms of next steps, so again, just kind of logistically, how do we get this moving? So if you are interested in adding a minor, specifically the minor in law, then basically what I would have to do is just go in and designate the minor for you. There's a special designation that is connected specifically to CFPCA, and I actually do that through one of my internal systems. It used to be that I had to email the records office, but now I actually have an automated system that I can do that. So that's very nice. And then basically from there, like I said, we just put a plan together for you. Ideally, we'd want to meet at least once a semester. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes folks forget to meet with me, or they're intimidated. I know I'm very intimidating, as you can see. But when it comes down to kind of setting up a plan, that's what I'm here for. I want to make sure we're looking at the long game and the short-term game. And then from there, you just logistically enroll in your classes. Generally in March of every year is when students register for fall. And generally around Halloween, Thanksgiving time is when students register for winter classes. So we'll kind of work with that cyclical plan. Thank you.
Thank you, both Mary and Professor Gable. That was very informative. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley Strouser. As I said, we saved the best part for last, and that is our student panel, and she's going to go ahead and get us started.
Yes, so thank you again, everybody, for joining. So as you have questions, now that all of this information has been thrown at you, if you have any questions about anything, now is the time to ask. Feel free to go ahead and throw those questions in the chat box, or you're even welcome to take yourself off of mute and ask. But before we get going with those questions, I know that we did some brief introductions in the beginning. But if our panelists, if you could just very briefly remind us, name your year and your major. Maybe LaShara, could we start with you?
Sure. LaShara Montgomery, communication studies major. I'm a junior, and also I am an employee at Wayne State University.
Thank you so much, LaShara. And then Daniel, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, again, I'm Daniel Sykes, communication studies major, and I'm a senior.
All right. And then last but certainly not least, Charlie, did you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? You're in a little
Sure.
bit of a different position, but
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Charlie Cadado. I recently graduated from the law school and just started working at a firm in Detroit called Warner Norcross and Judd. Still waiting for my bar results. So that's anxiously waiting for my bar results. So we're in the process of waiting around before I can begin working. But I'll be working at that firm hopefully soon and getting started in their litigation practice group. Before that, I came to Wayne State for journalism. I studied broadcast journalism, graduated from the College of Fine Communication Performing Arts, and then worked for 4 years at WXYZ Channel 7 on their assignment desk before I decided to ultimately pursue law school.
thank you, Charlie. Okay, so the first question that we're going to start off with, and Charlie will adjust this question a little bit for you, but Daniel and Lashara, why did you join the minor in law program through the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts?
Oh, well, like I stated earlier, I saw an advertisement on the Wayne State website that introduced that they were going to launch the program. So I just kind of like, clicked on the law school and saw all the different areas where you can apply the minor in law. And what made it more interesting is that it launched the master's program. So I want to pursue once I've completed my bachelor's, I want to pursue the master's program of law, studying law with the concentration of human resources.
Awesome. And Daniel?
Yes, and just like Lashara, I'm also a communication study major, but for me, I've always had this dream of going and attending law school. So, and I've always loved communication studies. So when I had this opportunity, I thought that it was absolutely great. And then again, with Wayne being one of the only universities to offer classes at the law school, I found that was really beneficial to get that side and that experience from actual professors that teach there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. And Mary, go ahead.
Yes, actually, Kalia actually sent me a message. She didn't mean for it to be a private message. She meant to open it up to the whole discussion. So I asked if I could share that. She had asked, do you have to be a junior to start this minor or declare it as your minor? And I actually responded back saying that you can actually add the minor now. So logistically, I can add it for you. You have to be a junior to take the LEX courses, but you can actually begin taking the COM courses that start in the minor and double count in the major, starting your freshman or sophomore year. So that's a really great question to propose. Technically, we have to wait until junior year to take the LEX courses, but I do know that in some instances, Dean Taylor Vargo has offered an override for some students that are finishing up their sophomore year, if they're doing really well, if they're just super interested. So again, I just want to make sure that students are aware of kind of logistically how we would plan that out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was a really great question. I'm glad that we were able to get that out there. Okay, so Charlie, you're in a little bit of a different situation where you actually didn't complete the minor in law program through the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, yet you have the background in communications, you had some work experience, and then you ended up attending law school. How do you see, if you had the opportunity to complete the minor in law, how would that have helped you in your positions after undergrad, and also even potentially with applying to law school?
Right. So thank you. Yeah, there's probably two ways that a program like this could have been extremely beneficial for somebody like me who had this desire to work in journalism and then eventually pursue law school. I think on one hand, when I graduated with a degree in journalism and entered the profession, And my first day walking into a newsroom, the news directors and the folks in charge wanted me to cover courts. They wanted me to cover the legal system. But of course, here I was working in a newsroom, not knowing the difference between a preliminary examination and an arraignment and everything that happened in between. And I won't forget that one time a reporter came up to the news desk where I was working, and they showed me a criminal complaint that had just been filed in federal court. And they said, "This is a carjacking. Why was this carjacking filed in federal court? Why wasn't it filed in state court?" And I had no idea why. But of course, when I got to law school, you learn about the law of interstate travel in your first year, and you learn about the reason why certain things are filed in state court, certain things are filed in federal court. You learn about the legal system, you learn about how things work. And I think it is such a disservice to your readers or your listeners or the people who watch the news when there are journalists like myself who did not know how the legal system worked. And I think there's so many journalists out there that don't have an opportunity to learn the basics of the law, and they end up in professions and are not able to they're not able to really do a good job because they're learning on the job. And so this is a great opportunity to do that. On the other hand, coming to law school was a challenge, I think, for myself, because I came to law school knowing virtually nothing about the legal system. I didn't have lawyers in my family. I didn't know very many lawyers. And law school isn't exactly an easy process. So to show up in the first day of classes, it was a little bit intimidating. It was a difficult thing to learn about how to read cases for the first time, how to learn how to think like a lawyer, how to learn how to write like a lawyer. All of those things are so brand new, so different. And so to have had an opportunity to at least step foot in the law school, meet the professors, learn how to think in a certain way would have made a huge difference when I first showed up to law school. And so I think it would also have taken a lot of stress off of the process of being a brand new law student.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie. And that actually briefly addressed one of Talia's questions that she had asked, which was kind of how difficult law school is. And having gone to law school, of course, you can kind of address that. Mary, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, actually, Kalia had just shared a question, and yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was proposed as well in terms of, for anyone that's comfortable sharing their experience on the call that's graduated from law school. That is a perfectly valid and excellent question as well. Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was proposed to just me in a direct message or if it was everyone. Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can also say, as an alumni of the law school and somebody who went through the law school process, in terms of the application process and getting into law school, the admissions office is more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, to kind of walk you through anything that you might need help with. They're very helpful. And then in your first year, there's a lot of transitioning that you'll have to do, which I know Charlie kind of touched on. And then as you go on, you'll become more comfortable with law school. And then you'll just kind of go from there. So law school is certainly a challenge. It's very academically rigorous. However, it's also very much so something that you can do if it's something that you want to do. So with that, I will move on to our next question. Daniel, maybe if you want to start this one, because I know you had mentioned you have several minors. How has it been kind of balancing the major that you initially chose on top of adding that minor and all of the requirements that come along with that?
For me, it wasn't really challenging to do so. I didn't have any issues. I can say it was very helpful that under the communication of fine and performing arts college, that I was able to use some of my major requirements for the minor requirement as well. So it made it easy because I was going to have to take those courses anyway. and as well as I had other minors, and one was African American Studies, which actually for me, taking these courses actually helped me a lot when it came to looking at cases for my African American Studies classes and using those as part of presentations and understanding how the law applied there. So I found that it worked hand in hand in my experience.
Awesome. And Lashara, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for the difficulty, I'm not gonna say that it was easy, but yeah, it's easy because the ease of it for me is that most of the courses can be counted towards the major in communication and the minor. So with taking the minor courses, it taught, the very first course taught me to say, hey, don't be so boxed in with thinking. And the very first LEX course that I took was the 5,000, opened my mind up to think outside the box. And there are really no right or wrong answers. And I got excited to know that we have the ability to go ahead and change the laws as well.
Awesome. I love to hear that, Lashara. That's really, really great. So kind of building off of that, Daniel and Lashara, have the two of you, your LEX courses, have they been online or in person? Have you had both? What have your courses been like?
I've had both, and they're both excellent. So I'm just waiting to Professor Gable has allowed me to finish up something that I was missing. So now I'm excited to move forward to the 50/20. So then I'll have those courses, the core courses, finished.
Yes, and I would just like to agree. I've had them both as well, and both classes have been great in person as well as online.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add just briefly, I know for Kalia and folks that may not be as familiar with kind of the bigger picture in terms of program planning. So just to throw it out there, so every single student in the state of Michigan, maybe national, I'm not sure, I have to do some research on that, but I know for sure state of Michigan requires for any bachelor's degree at any four-year university, you have to complete at least 120 credits. That's the bare minimum. So when Lashara and Daniel and we're talking about adding a minor, adding two minors, that type of thing. What we really want to do is try to get you as close to 120 as possible when you're graduating. 120 is the bare minimum, so you can't graduate below that, but you always can graduate over, and that's okay. What we want to make sure is that you're taking courses, obviously, that count towards your programs and that are enriching and engaging and interesting to you, but also we want it to work towards your program. So I hope that helps to clarify a little bit, Kalia. And I know it's actually kind of funny, we actually have an advising appointment later today. So awesome, Kalia. I look forward to meeting with you a little later and we'll dive into this a little bit more, but that's what that looks like. So when I met with Daniel and discussing his minor choices, it was really nice to be able to double count some of those so that he's not graduating too far over the 120. Again, it's okay if you do, we just don't want you to obviously pay for any extra courses that don't need necessarily. So thank you, Ashley.
Yes, thank you. That's really great information for everyone to have. So the next question that I'm going to pose for you, Lashara and Daniel, is regarding the LEX courses specifically. So as Professor Gable had mentioned, these are courses specifically designed for the minor in law course or for the minor in law program for undergraduate students, meaning these are courses with undergraduate students in them. They're not going to be courses with law students in them who are completing the JD program. But how do these LEX courses compare to other undergraduate courses? Are they extremely difficult? Are the professors utilizing cold calling? What do those courses kind of look like in comparison?
Well, for me, it's the same, but it's just more, I'm not going to say it's challenging. The LEX courses are more interesting because it's like the torts The torts were more interesting to me in the 50-10 and the actual hands-on, like comparing different laws and statutes and stuff in the 5,000 class was more interesting to me. So it was just like, wow, this is really it. For me, it just clicked. It's, you know, I guess maybe because of my advanced age and seeing things here around the world, and it kind of just all like, okay, these pieces fit together. Okay, oh, this is how this works, and this is how that works, and I didn't know this. We could do this, and we can do that. So both the 5,000 and the 50-10 were very interesting.
Awesome. And Daniel, did you want to add anything to that regarding how the courses are taught in comparison to other undergraduate courses?
Yes, I would say that they didn't seem too much difficult or out of the ordinary. I would say what was interesting is that, I mean, they really prompted that critical thinking, and like Lashara said, being able to think outside of the box. And that, you know, when you're thinking of examples or looking over things, it just goes to show how much the law is just, you know, in our lives and we don't realize it, and applying it to anything. So I thought that was very helpful. And the professors were all more than willing to, you know, clarify any information, provide us with more examples if needed. I can say that was very helpful, having that support if there was any clarity that I needed or any of the other students.
Awesome. Thank you. So you both kind of anticipated two questions that we have, which are, you know, how are the professors? Are they accessible? And then what have been your favorite courses so far? And it sounds like, Lashara, you really liked that torts portion. And it sounds like you both have had, you know, accessibility to the professors and no issues contacting them. So I'm really happy to hear that. And with all of that, I know we're getting close to our time here, so I'll just finish things up with one last question. What has been kind of your favorite thing about the program so far, or what are you looking forward to most?
For me, it's the ease of fitting it into my schedule. You know, at this point in time, you know, with it being online, I can sit at work and, you know, do my courses, or, you know, it's not so much demanding. It's more like, okay, here's your assignment. This is the time you need to have it in and do it. So it gives me the autonomy to finish it at my own pace. And not the pressure of it, like, okay, well, is this true? Is this false? The trick of an exam with the multiple questions is more of your understanding of the law. And the professors will correct you if you're too far off base, but they are very welcoming to your point of view, because it's all about a point of view.
Awesome. Thank you. And Daniel?
Yes, and I would just again agree with that. A lot of it is really with the interpretation, and with law, there's always, you know, that interpretation. You know, which way did they interpret it? So it's very interesting. I can say that for me, as I have now completed my minor in law, it was really the exposure and the experience that I really was excited about and happy to have, even when I'm at home reading certain things. If it relates to the law before, I can say I didn't really know as much, or I was a bit confused, and now I'm able to actually understand it a bit more. And also, you know, some of my friends who may not know, you know, clarify some of it, or tell them, you know, that's what, you know, if you're reading this opinion, or, you know, what a dissenting opinion or something of that nature, you know, clarifying that. So I can say that I'm certainly happy about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Charlie, you might have thought you were getting off easy without getting a final question, but you are getting a final question as well. Having worked post-undergrad in kind of the journalism field, and then having applied to and attended and completed law school successfully, congratulations again on that. What is one piece of advice that you would provide to College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts students who might be planning on attending law school, or who, even if they're not planning on attending law school, who are planning on going into the arts field in one way or another, and kind of the intersectionality with law.
Sure, thank you. I would say one piece of advice that I wish I had gotten earlier in undergrad is to not try to take the easy way out. I remember in undergrad that a lot of people would say they'd look on Rate My Professors, they'd try to find an easier classes to take. They didn't want to take the challenge of pursuing a more difficult class because they thought, well, I need to keep my GPA up because I want to go to law school, and GPA matters and the LSAT score matters and all of these things matter. And yes, they do. But what also matters is coming to law school or entering a profession prepared and able to take on challenges that you want to have had, if you want to have had experience at some point before in your life, either in undergrad or elsewhere. And that's one thing that I wish I would have done in undergrad, is to take classes that everybody didn't want to take because they thought it was going to be too difficult, or a professor that people thought were not, didn't have the best reviews. And I did do a couple, and when I got into those classes, you realize, like, I remember in my first year as a journalist and then my first year in law school, I remember more things from some of those classes than any other class that I took at Wayne State. And so that's one thing is yes, it's not going to be the easiest process to go to law school. It's not like you just show up and things are handed to you. It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that is so worth it in the end, because you step away and you look at the big picture. You're like, wow, I learned so much in 3 years, or I learned so much from this minor, or I learned so much from this difficult class, and it will stick with you for a long time. So that would be my piece of advice looking back at my time in undergrad, is to take the risk, take the challenge, go for it, and I think it will pay off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie. I just want to take a second to thank all of our panelists who took the time out of their day to join us and share their experiences with you all, so that you have an additional perspective, not just from a law school alumni and faculty, but also from Charlie, who was able to work in a relevant field and then attend law school, and to students who have participated in the MIL program through CFPCA. So thank you to all of you. As a final reminder to conclude and wrap this all up, if you have any questions after this presentation, be sure to reach out to us at milprogram@wayne.edu. We are happy to help and answer any questions. Also, feel free to reach out to Mary regarding next steps and kind of getting things rolling. And with all of that said, I would just like to thank everybody for joining. For Mary, Professor Gable, and Assistant Dean Taylor Vargo for assisting with this as well. And we look forward to seeing all of you again soon. So thank you.
Bye.